Today, I wish that we reflect a little bit on one of the seven phrases or statements of Jesus from the cross. And it is this particular one: my God, why hast thou forsaken me? This is something that we all say at one time or the other. And to have Jesus say it from the cross means a lot. And that is why I think it is very important that we reflect on this particular statement of Jesus from the cross of Calvary while he was hanging up there and dying on that cross. Definitely, a good lot of us have heard about that story of the footprint, called the footprints. And this story is about the man who had scenes from his life flashed before him, and he realized that during the most difficult moments of his life, he had one set of footprints, but during the most cozy and good moments of his life, he had two sets of footprints. And talking with the Lord told him, when you saw two sets of footprints, I was there with you. I was the one walking with you. And so the man, reflecting, realized that during those moments when life was difficult, there was just one set of footprints. And so he said, so why is it that during the most difficult moments of life, you abandoned me? And God said, during that moment when you saw just one set of footprints, that was when I was carrying you. And somebody read this story and asked himself, was God really carrying me? Was God carrying me when my daughter died? Was God carrying me when I went through a divorce? Was God carrying me when I lost my father? Was God carrying me when those terrible things were happening to me? How and where was God carrying me? We find ourselves at various moments, like Jesus on the cross of Calvary, asking, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And the interesting thing is, this is coming from Jesus. And when we analyze this particular statement, we see there is a lot that is packed into this statement of Jesus from the cross of Calvary. First is, my God, my God. Now, Jesus is the Son of God. And the power of adoption was strong in Jesus. And that is why even during that moment when he was crucified and he was hanging and dying on the cross of Calvary, he had a personal connection with God. And that is why he was capable of saying, my God, because he had that personal relationship with God. And if we do not build that personal relationship with God during the difficult moments of our lives, we won't even have anyone to turn to. And that is why so many people get into depression and so many contemplate suicide and many other kinds of things, because they do not have that spiritual resource to be able to turn to during the difficult moments of their lives. Jesus cried out, my God, because he had a personal God. He had a personal relationship with his Father, who is God. And the next word that comes up in that statement is why. Why? Jesus was able to ask God why, because he felt that there was something happening that was serious. And in his mind, as a human being, because he was both man and God, as a human being, he had to question himself. And questioning is good and is necessary at times, because when we do not question to know the root causes of things, to know what is going on in our lives, it is very difficult for us to be able to think about the solutions, how to get out of various problems. You're going through a divorce, you're going through one thing or the other. You must be able to ask, why is this happening? Why am I going through this? And at times, when we ask why, we realize we may be the cause of what is going on in our lives. And if we are the cause, or if when we ask the why, then we may seek to really know whether there are solutions. Why is this happening? We may realize that there are solutions and there are things we can do to make things better, to amend things, and to make our lives better. And when we do not ask why, it becomes very difficult, because the why, both in the bad things that are happening and the good things that are happening, tell us the motives, the motivation. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why is what is happening to me happening? So that why is very, very important, as Jesus is asking why. And Jesus, of course, knows that he is going to that cross because he wants to redeem us. He is shedding his lifeblood for the redemption of mankind, so that we may be freed from sin and from Satan's power. Hast thou forsaken me? When Jesus says, why hast thou forsaken me? Has means it has happened already. He is feeling the abandonment of the Father. He feels that the Father has already forsaken him. The Father has already abandoned him. It's something that he knows has happened already. It's not something he's foreseen that's going to happen in the future. He feels that the Father at that moment has abandoned him. Well, Jesus, again, is abandoning himself. He feels that as a human being, he feels the absence of God during this moment of pain. And it is no other person who seems to have abandoned him. It is God. And that's why he says, why hast thou? And this thou refers to God. My God, why hast thou? Now, Jesus could understand when Judas, because of his love for money, betrayed him. He could understand that Peter, who was weak, could deny him. He could understand that John would run away. He could understand that the other apostles will try to hide themselves during that serious moment, that crucial moment in his life, when he was being arrested and when he was being beaten, scourged, and forced to carry the cross. He could understand that even the people he had cured and the people he had healed, the people he had cast out demons from, he could understand that these people would run away. He could understand that the people for whom he had multiplied bread would turn away from him when he was no longer able to give them what they wanted and to perform those powerful signs and miracles. But he feels that his own Father, that God himself, has turned away from him. And so he's asking, why hast thou? And of course, there are those moments we pray and hope that God will do something. And yet we feel like God has abandoned us. We feel like God does not care. Because we want to feel his presence. We want his presence to be really powerful and mighty. We want to see him intervening in a way that is so miraculous and so perceptible that anybody can be able to say, this is God. But during those moments, at times, we do not feel his powerful presence and intervention. And what happened? Why hast thou forsaken me? He feels abandoned. As he's dying on that cross, he feels that God doesn't care. But again, this is the human side of Jesus that is playing on him. Because as we know, Jesus is both God and man, so he feels his humanity heavy on him. It is that same humanity that made him in the garden to say, Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass me by. Not as I will, but as you will. So as a human being, he felt the pain of going through the suffering and the persecution, the scourging, and the hanging on the cross. He felt that God had moved away from him. He felt that God had abandoned him. But Jesus knew. And that is why, after that, he turned back and says, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. Surrendering himself to God, surrendering his spirit to God. Because even at that moment, when he was questioning, he didn't doubt the presence or the existence of God. He just felt that God had kind of abandoned him. God had kind of shifted and allowed him to suffer, to be in that situation of pain and suffering, where there was that excruciating pain that was meant for the salvation of the world, for the redemption of mankind, shedding his own lifeblood so that man may be saved. And Jesus is still on that cross, even to this moment. When we too find ourselves in pain, you could be going through cancer, suffering from cancer, suffering from whatever disease or illness. Some of those moments, there are those nights when you can't sleep and you feel the pain and you're asking yourself, God, why hast thou forsaken me in my moment of pain? In my moment of suffering, I've prayed and I've been faithful. I've tried to live a virtuous or righteous life, and now here am I suffering and you don't care. God cares always. And during those moments of our pain, His grace is always sufficient for us. He knows us through and through. He knows our fears, and He gives us the courage and all we need, the graces that we need to sustain us through those difficult moments. And all we need to do is surrender ourselves into the hands of a loving God, for His love for us is everlasting. And from everlasting to everlasting, He loves us. He cares for us. He sustains us. And He gives us the grace to go through even the most challenging moments of our life. We only need to reflect a little more, and we'll always see that His grace is present with us even during those most difficult moments. Because on our own, we won't be able to go through certain situations. And that is why at times, when we have gone through some circumstances or situations in life, we turn around and ask, how did I survive this? And it is then that we realize it was not by our might, it was not by our power, but by the Spirit of the Lord guiding us, sustaining us, and helping us through the circumstances of life. Thank you very much. God bless you all, and I wish you all the best as you enter the Easter season.